All right. Welcome everyone to the MPO this morning. The first item on agenda is a call to order, reading accessibility statement, the Title VI non-discrimination statement, and then do an introduction. So I will read the accessibility statement and the Title VI non-discrimination statement now. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. If you would like these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202. In terms of the notice of non-discrimination rights and protections of beneficiaries, with regard to the federal Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protections is included in this meeting's agenda. It is posted in the conference room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website at www.ocpcrpa.org. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202 for more information. Thank you. All right, so Charlie, do we want to go ahead and do the introductions and read the roll?
Yes, I'll call the roll call.
Yep.
Massdot Steve Wolfel.
Here.
Massdot Pamela Hasner.
Here.
City of Brockton Danielle Littman.
Here.
Town of Plymouth Lee Hartman.
Present.
Town of West Bridgewater Meredith Anderson. Town of Whitman Danielle Salavucci.
Here.
Brockton Area Transit Michael Lambert.
Here.
And representing Old Colony Planning Council Charles Kilmer. Here. 7 of the 8 are present. Do I have a quorum?
Okay. We want to go to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 2, public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? All right, seeing none, Charlie, want to move to agenda item 3. Now, this is the minutes of the January 19, 2021 Old Colony MPO meeting. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the January 19th minutes?
I'll motion Dan Salvucci Whitman.
Lee Hartman, second.
All right, any changes or comments on the minutes? All right, seeing none, Charlie, you want to read the roll?
Yes. Massdot Steve Wolfel.
Yes.
Massdot Pamela Hasner.
Yes.
City of Brockton Danielle Littman.
Yes.
Town of Plymouth Lee Hartman.
Yes.
Town of Whitman Danielle Salavucci.
Yes.
Brockton Area Transit Michael Lambert.
Yes.
Old Colony Planning Council Charles Kilmer. Yes. Motion passes.
All right, thank you everyone for that. So let's move on to the next agenda item, Charlie. Which is agenda item 4, Brockton Area Transit Authority report. You want to go ahead, Mike?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. A pretty quiet update this time around. We have, again, focusing on safety and operations. We have currently 3 drivers or support staff out with as either close contacts or with positive test results. None have any serious symptoms though, so we're thankful for that, and we expect to have everyone back by the end of the week. Of course, keeping a close eye out for new close contacts or any symptoms that arise. Ridership continues to hover somewhere between 40 and 50% of our previous sort of standard numbers, typically depending on the weather, is what will drive the change between 40 and 50%. And that is my update for the day.
All right, any questions for Mike? All right, seeing none, let's move to agenda item 5, Charlie, which is a placeholder for any tip amendments or adjustments, which I believe we don't have any, Charlie.
Yes, that's correct. We do not have any for this meeting.
All right, so let's move to agenda item 6. And agenda item 6 is development of the federal fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Old Colony Transportation Improvement Program, as well as going over the recently completed readiness evaluation criteria. So I believe this is you, Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have an agenda item on the MPO for the next couple of months, and the The end result will be an endorsed 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. So as we're continuing our development process, we're here to report on 3 items. One is the results of the TIP readiness days, results of the evaluation criteria, and we're going to present a universe of projects and talk about some projects that are being considered for programming either in 2025 or 2026. So dating back to the early to mid 2000s, there's been a unified effort called TIP Day or TIP Readiness Days, and this is a collaborative process by and between the MPO partners, including Massdot division offices, right-of-way, environmental districts, et cetera, to collaboratively review project status and readiness, and to double check and make sure that projects already programmed in the TIP are on track for that given year as we're developing the new TIP, and whether or not a project is accelerating in the design process or decelerating in the design process. Let's say if a project was programmed in 2024 and it looked like there were some delays due to some complexities that have arisen, there might be a recommendation coming out of TIP readiness days that a project may be recommended for a later year in the TIP. So what we have before you is the results going forward in the readiness days later on in this agenda item. And then, as we're also digesting the results of TIP readiness day, we're also reviewing the transportation evaluation criteria that's been applied to the projects, and they're on a 100-point scale. And you can see here on your slide, the evaluation criteria is a multifaceted review of the projects, and we review projects in terms of condition, mobility, safety, community effects, land use and economic development, and environmental effects. And then on the screen here, you can see the actual evaluation criteria. So on the condition, it's items such as magnitude of pavement, condition improvement. On mobility, we're measuring congestions, what's going to be the increase or reduction, or improvement, I should say, on level of service, or decrease in delay. Safety is one of the things that Bill McNulty and the safety group of our staff looks at, is placement on the top 100 high crash locations in the region, or is it in a H crash cluster, and how is application of the improvements going to, say, move the needle on placement in that list, move it down the list, and also help make progress towards achieving, say, safety targets, as we talked about at our last meeting. Cost effectiveness, we do not currently rate that, but on community effects, that includes our environmental justice and Title VI application. How are these projects located from a geographic equity standpoint, land use and economic development? Will the application of these projects result in job creation or increase access to employment centers? And then last but not least, environmental and different effects such as greenhouse gas. Massachusetts is working towards achievement of the Global Warming Solution Act performance metrics. So for every TIP project, we do measure and report out on the improvement on greenhouse gas emissions. So moving on to our project list, we'll review the projects currently in the TIP, and that's the first 3 line items here. Avon intersection improvements at Harrison and Boulevard Pond Street. Note here that the program year is federal 2021, and this project has been advertised for construction bids. The second project is east to Route 123 Depot Street. And note that this project has been advertised for construction bids. In rounding out our regional target projects and statewide improvements project, this Safe Routes to School results from TIP Readiness Day and a recent collaborative MARPA Massdot meeting indicates that the Stoughton improvements at Richard Wilkins Elementary School is on schedule to be advertised, I believe, in the 3rd quarter of federal fiscal year 2021. And then moving on to 2022, TIP Readiness Day, it should note that for anything beyond 2021 in this spreadsheet, we have highlighted projects, whether it's moving up or moving out, denoted by colors. So if there's no shading on the year, it indicates that that's a concurrent affirmation that that project is good for that program year. So in this case, Pembroke, it was the result of TIP Readiness Day that this project is on track and should be good for programming in 2022. The next project down is a statewide funded project. It's Avon, Stoughton, and pavement improvements on Route 24. And a note here that there was an indication from TIP Readiness Days that this project is in an advanced state of design and readiness, and it potentially could be a 21 project, but currently is programmed in 2022. The next two projects, the last two on this spreadsheet, require some explanation. These two projects are proposed to be combined into one project. Presently, the intersection improvements at Center carrying Lyman Street is programmed in federal 2022, and due to some complexities with this project and design and the current deliverables, it's proposed to, a recommendation from today is to move this project to 2023. And then also it was noted by Massdot that it's the intention of Massdot to combine this project with this project Brockton Abington pedestrian improvements on Route 123. So the resultant project would be combined and then theoretically programmed in 2023. I'll pause at this point to see if Pam or Ben and Steve have any comments on the combination of these two projects.
Do you have anything?
I'm trying to unmute, sorry. No, pretty much what Charlie said. The intersection has had a number of iterations as far as the concepts and as well as the corridor. The corridor is funded right now. It's proposed to be funded with non-federal aid, statewide non-federal aid funding, and the intersection with statewide federal aid funding. So neither would affect the regional target. And I think once the concepts are nailed down, we're trying to spend a lot more time initially on projects nailing down the concepts so that we can move forward and you know, at the pre-25% stage and not backtrack. And it just makes projects a lot smoother as they move along. So I think, what did you say, 23 for this? I think that's what seems like a reasonable timeline for us at this point.
Anyone have any questions? All right. Charlie, do you want to keep going?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. And then moving on to the next page here, and in 2023, the Stoughton intersection improvements and related work on Central, Canton, and Tosca. TIP Readiness Days affirmed that 2023 was a realistic year for programming and no change in the programming going forward. The next project is Stoughton quarter improvements on Route 138, and this project is currently programmed across 2 years, and it's advanced constructed, and guidance from TIP Readiness Days affirm that it's a realistic project for 23 and 24. And I note that I didn't refer to it earlier, but with regard to evaluation criteria on the right-hand column, those are the results, the resultant scores of the evaluation criteria. And I note that this project in particular is the highest scoring project that we do have in our universe of projects. The next project in the list is Brockton Route 123 Center Street at Plymouth Street Signalization and Geometric Improvements. It was noted during TIP Readiness Days that the 25% design is scheduled to be provided to Massdot in June 2021. And it was a thought from tip readiness days that 2023 was perhaps a little too optimistic for advertisement of this project. So it was a recommendation from the readiness days that to move this project to 2024. Next project is Plimpton Bridge Replacement on Tuxedo Road over in the Tuxedo River. Still in a pre-25% design, but the recommended year of programming from readiness days was 2024. The next project in the list is Abington intersection improvements at Hancock and Chestnut Street, and I believe the preferred alternative with this project is geometric improvements in installation of a roundabout. And this was confirmed for 2025 as a realistic year of programming. The next project is intersection improvements at Lyman, Grove, Summer Street, and the replacement of the Grove Street Bridge. And tip readiness days confirmed that 2025 was a realistic year of advertising for this program. So all in all, as we're going through this list, if folks have any questions, please feel free as we're going through it. And I do remind everybody on the call that anything that's not shaded in red or green means that it basically says, hey, it's likely going to be programmed in the same year that it is in the current tip. The only caveat being is we're looking at these projects for the new tip. We're coordinating with Massdot and project proponents on affirming what the total federal participating construction cost is and balancing that out for fiscal constraint, because the tip has to be constrained to available funds. So that's kind of our next step in the process, is to take a deep dive on costs and then present to you, the MPO, at your next meeting, one or more scenarios on a preferred set of projects. And that the MPO will review it and make a determination on which set of preferred projects to move forward into actual tip development. The next project is Duxbury Signalization of Route 3 ramps at Route 3A. This is exit 10. And though there was confirmation that 2025 was a logical or realistic date for programming, Massdot did indicate that they are looking for some feedback from the community on status of the design and whether or not this is going to be moving ahead. It's our understanding that from the town that funding for design is to be concluded on the spring town meeting warrant. So we should hear something back from the town. The town had been working with VAI engineers on some preliminary cost estimates and whatnot. So the town is indeed interested in moving this project ahead. So now that kind of concludes a review of projects already in the tip. So going forward, we've identified two main projects for candidate considerations, and these will help inform the preferred scenarios for the MPO to consider. And the last on this page is Easton corridor improvements on Route 138, including intersection improvements at 138 Elm Street. That would be install signals at that location and geometric improvements. And this isn't a solo intersection project by itself. This would include the intersection, and then the corridor would travel northward to match where the improvements were recently done at the intersection of Route 138 at Union Street. And this would include the mainline corridor. It's about 2,000 feet north of this intersection. And it would include the installation of bicycle accommodations and sidewalks. So tip readiness days indicated that either 2025 or 2026 would be a realistic year of programming for this project. And on the top of our list here is the Hanson Route 14 corridor improvements from Pembroke Town Line to Indian Head Street. Is approximately 1.3 miles. And similarly, this includes bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and we believe it's an off-road multi-use path It also includes stormwater improvements and intersection improvements at Route 14 and Route 58. It's the top of the hill, and there would be some grading and elevation changes to that intersection. That's the one right by it's a side street stop, Main Street stop now on Route 14, and there's currently a funeral home right there. So resultant review from tip readiness days indicated that 2025 or 2026 would be a feasible or potential year of programming. And then the rest of the projects round out the universe of projects. There are several projects in here that were recently approved by the Massdot Project Review Committee into the design process. And that's the case with the second project here on our list. Avon intersection improvements at Route 28, Spring and Harrison Boulevard. Still very early in the design process and not likely a candidate for the upcoming tip. Next project, intersection improvements at Crescent Street, Quincy Street, and Massasoit Boulevard. Currently at 25% design, and there has not been recent design activity on this project. The next project down is East Bridgewater, intersection improvements at Bedford Street, West Street, and East Street. This is a recently approved project by the Massdot Project Review Committee and very early in the design process. The next project is East Bridgewater, intersection improvements at Highland Street and North Bedford Street, which is Route 18. And again, this is a very early in the design process and just recently approved by the Massdot Project Review Committee. Note that these are on state highway locations, the recently approved projects, and we're thankful to Massdot for advancing these projects because this is, consistent with the goals of the MPO to improve mobility and safety on the arterial network, and these projects are certainly consistent with that effort. The next project is in Easton, resurfacing related work on Route 138, and currently not programmed as this project is still early in the project scoping and design phase. And the last project on this list is Hanover, resurfacing and related work on Route 53. Currently not programmed, but still remains in the universe of projects, and it's in its early state of design, pre-25%. And we're getting to the end, so 3 projects ago. Pembroke, recently approved by Massdot Project Review Committee. This is Washington Street at Scoosett, so that's 53 at 139. This has been subject to, road safety audits in the past. It's a high crash location, so we're thankful to Massdot for moving this into the design process. The next project, it's been around for a while, and I believe there's been a preferred alternative selected by the community in Massdot, and it's still in the early pre-25% design stage. This is Stoughton reconstruction of Turnpike Street. And last but not least is a recently approved project by the Massdot Project Review Committee, intersection improvements at Canton School in Summer Street, currently a 5-way intersection, tight geometry, and unsignalized. And I believe the proposal here is to provide geometric improvements, bike ped accommodations, and to signalize this intersection. And still early in the design phase, and might be a little bit early to program in the tip, but it resides in the universe of projects nonetheless. So that's a quick review of what we have for projects and what may be the likely projects for consideration, and those would be the Easton Route 138 from Elm Street to the just south of the Union Street project, and the next candidate project for potential inclusion would be the Hanson Route 14 project. So staffs will go back and do some financial scenario planning and come up with some potential scenarios for the MPO's consideration at your next meeting.
All right, anyone have any questions for Charlie about these projects or any others? All right, I don't see any. Oh, wait.
I have a couple of comments on the state highway intersection locations. Those are being developed in coordination with our Boston Traffic Safety Unit. And they are high crash locations. I cannot say at this point if all of them will be statewide HSIP projects, but the intent is to review them for that program. And we will be performing roadway safety audits sometime in the reasonably near future. I did check with our maintenance section on the Hanover 53 corridor, and at this time we are not planning to advance anything there. A bit of it has been resurfaced through our maintenance activities. So we're planning to, at this time, deactivate it to try to keep our, project database clean. And then in the future, when we do choose to advance a project there, we'll bring it back to the project review committee.
Yeah, I know you guys did a lot of work with that over last summer, and actually some parts, especially around the Hanover Mall, look pretty good. So
Yeah, and I think there's a permit that's going through the process right by the mall for the redevelopment as well.
yep.
All right, any other questions? Charlie or Pam, what have you? All right.
I'd just like to add that I'd like to thank you to Massdot and Ben Muller for coordinating this year's tip readiness days. I think it's a really good example of how Massdot and staffs at the MPO work together collaboratively to review project readiness to help build a realistic tip. And though tip day or tip readiness day has taken many forms over the years, whether it's in person or on a phone or in a virtual environment such as this year, I think it's a really important part of the process, and it's really helpful to the staffs of the MPO to have all the folks weigh in on project readiness, and it helps build a realistic tip. So thank you to Massdot.
Thanks, Charlie. I think we're on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 8, Shared Winter Streets and Spaces Grant Program. Charlie, who's doing this?
Paul Chenard.
All right, go Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Charlie. So I just wanted to bring the MPO an update on the Shared Winter Streets and Spaces program. Those will recall that the Shared Winter Streets and Spaces grant program is really an extension of the Shared Streets and Spaces program that we all saw during the summer, especially during the height of COVID, which was really created by Massdot and some outside organizations in order to give people extra space to socially distance, and also provide spaces for businesses and other ventures to be out in what would be normally parking spaces in the street, repurposing these spaces for actually for commerce and pedestrian bicycle activity. So after the summer, Massdot rebranded it as the Winter Shared Streets and Spaces program and continued that program, which was highly successful. A number of communities actually received money in our region, along with the Brockton Area Transit Authority. The communities that received money would be the West Bridgewater, the town of Plymouth, and with like West Bridgewater receiving $254,000, and I believe Plymouth receiving $172,000 to provide temporary accommodations out in the public right of way. Unfortunately, the program is coming to a close at the end of this month, but we still have applications being submitted in our region. For example, Avon is entertaining an application to the Shared Streets and Spaces program to create a multi-use path just off of bordering the city of Brockton and Avon. And they're hoping to apply for that and receive some money so they can create that multi-use path. And so, yeah, so we've been really fortunate to be beneficiaries of the program. And that application due date will be on the 26th of February. So if any other communities are looking to possibly get in on that, I encourage them to act now. And if they need any assistance, we are more than willing to help them out and craft their application. And the announcements for the award will be on May 31st. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to take.
All right, anyone have any questions of Paul? I don't see any. All right, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, the next agenda item is agenda item 9, administrative matters of the business, date and time of next meeting. Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So on your screen, you can see scheduling of the MPO meeting through June 15th of the MPO. So those meetings will be at 10 a.m. unless otherwise noted. Just as a teaser on what's happening on some of these meetings, as we referenced earlier at the March meeting, we're looking to present different tip planning scenarios for the MPO's consideration and a potential selection of a preferred set of projects. Moving forward to that in April, the MPO will tentatively schedule to release a draft tip for a public review and comment period. In May, the MPO will hear the results of the comment period on the tip and consider endorsement, or if there's substantial changes, perhaps release a revised draft tip to a public review and comment period. And also at the May meeting, it's theorized that the MPO will consider release of a draft 2022 Unified Planning Work Program, which is kind of the scope of work of the transportation staff for the upcoming federal fiscal year. And then in June, the MPO will hear the results of the public comment period on the draft 2022 Unified Planning Work Program and consider endorsement. Also within this time frame, Paula Chenard and the staff are working on developing a new and updated public participation plan and incorporating a measures of effectiveness element to that plan, which looks at qualitative and quantitative measures on how to gauge your effectiveness of your public participation plan, and also include elements on virtual public engagement. So those are some key items that are going to be happening within this 4-month time frame.
Oh, busy.
Yep.
Next up, we have an announcement, and you may have already seen this, but as part of the recent economic development bond bill, there was a DHCD issued preliminary guidance for MBTA communities. In order for them to be eligible going forward beyond the initial phase, it doesn't include this year, they're to have at least one zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. And then while this is preliminary guidance, I do note that anything in the 2021 grant cycle, you still will be eligible regardless of whether or not you had that zoning in place. So stay tuned for further guidance. Next is a conference on dementia-friendly transportation driver training. So the Mass COAs, Mass Mobility, and Alzheimer's Association are going to be having a session starting on March 3rd. Next is a culvert replacement project grant program. So keep in mind that the cap on this is $1.5 million. And the application period is, I believe, closing this coming Thursday. So if you're interested and haven't done so, you need to get your applications in soon. And there you go, February 18th. And not on this list, but equally exciting, save the date, late May is the Massdot Innovation Conference. I believe it's tentatively scheduled for May 25th through the 27th, and Massdot is currently looking for abstracts and potential conference items. So if you're interested in presenting at this conference, please contact Massdot with some abstract ideas. I believe that closes March 2nd as the window for proposals. So that's always a very well attended event and a great sharing of ideas and collaboration. That's what we had for updates.
All right, anyone have questions for Charlie? All right, thank you, Charlie. I don't see any hands up, so I believe the last agenda item is just to adjourn.
I'll
So-
make that motion, Dan from Whitman.
Is there a second?
Lee Hartman, second.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, thank you, everyone. As Dan remarked, we're going to be really busy over the next couple of months, so stay tuned. And everyone stay safe, and we'll see you soon.